Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 28 of Code Lyoko, Unchartered Territory, and this episode actually kind of unloads a lot more plot details that become important in the season, so I'm going to try and get through them as best as I can. Pretty much, after what happened in the last episode with the discovery of the Hermitage house in the woods, Jeremy decided to do a bit of looking into it, especially since there seems to be a lot of strange stuff associated with it. Aelita having memories of the place, there being a little secret passageway into the sewer. Pretty much, they're just starting to wonder if possibly that this place is connected to Lyoko. And as Jeremy is looking, and after a night of hacking, Jeremy manages to find a deed for the Hermitage signed to a man named Franz Hopper, who it turns out was actually a science teacher at Kadic at one point, which they ultimately later confirmed by going to the archives. As such, the group feels like that this is a possible connection, and they want to try and explore this more and see what's going on, resulting in Odd, Ulrich, and Jeremy deciding that they're going to go visit the Hermitage house later to try and scope it out, see if they can find anything that can go back, that allows them to find anything connected to Franz Hopper. In the meantime, though, we see Aelita's not exactly doing so well in the terms of settling in. It turns out, apparently, in the week that she's been on Earth, she's been having the same nightmare. In this nightmare, she's been dreaming of this little elf boy running through the woods as he's being chased by wolves, and the nightmare always seems to end when he hides in a tree and the wolves corner him. As a result, hold on a sec. Sorry, that's bugging me. Anyway, as such, it's just kind of starting to get to Aelita, and her situation is not made any better as she's not exactly fitting in at Kadic either. She finds it because she's inexperienced with people. Sissy is pretty much seeing her as an easy target, intentionally messing with her in various ways, like when all the girls are lining up to go to use the shower. Sissy putting on her best alpha bitch mode is intentionally taking up most of her time, and she then tricks Aelita to go to the boys' bathroom because there are no girls there. So it's just it's just pretty. On top of that, she's feeling rushed. She wants comfort, but because everyone is trying to figure out everything associated with Franz Hopper, no one is there to give her moral support. And during lunch, she feels like during lunch when she's feeling becomes disoriented with trying to pick something. When she becomes indecisive in what she wants to eat, there are some kids that tell her, hurry it up, which ultimately does get to her. When she tries to go to Yumi to try and talk to her, she's sitting down with William, so she thinks she'd be butting in, and it ultimately comes to a head when she decides to just leave the cafeteria, and Sissy deciding to just tells her, hey, if you're not feeling it now, why don't you just go back to where you came from? Which finally just caused Aelita to break down and just run away. With Sissy feeling this is a well-earned victory. Thus, this is part of the reason why I like it when she actually shows genuine human concern, because she's so good at being the alpha bitch that I hate people like that. I honest to God hate people like that. If you're a kid, I hate you. And again, I know she's a kid, but I hate brats. I hate stuck up entitled little brats who think they can do whatever the hell they want and then get away with it. It just gets to me. So yeah. This is just one of those. This actually kind of got on my nerves too. Not helped by the fact that she, sorry. I should get back to the episode. But yeah, well, the group anyway. Odd, Ulrich, and Jeremy do go to the Hermitage house, and ultimately, as they're walking through, they find a book. They find a book on I forgot the battle. Sorry again, not a big history buff, but it was essentially a war. I forgot what it was. But bottom line, it was like a war involving the General Hannibal. And again, apologies, I don't remember all the specifics, but pretty much they noticed a bunch of parts in it highlighted and they're just kind of, and it's just kind of getting weird. It's just kind of getting strange, and Jeremy takes the book with him. However, when they learn that Aelita is not in class, they start wondering what's going on, and Sissy, being Sissy, just stuck up says says, "Oh, she left to go back to Canada because," which ultimately makes Jeremy think that maybe she went back to Lyoko. And as such, he excuses himself because he says he's feeling ill, and Ulrich and Odd volunteer to bring him to the nurse's office. And sure enough, yeah, Aelita has gone back to Lyoko, intentionally virtualizing herself just so that she can spend some time alone. However, she's not in Lyoko very long when she's suddenly cornered by some of Xana's monsters, specifically the blocks. Because Aelita can't defend herself that well, she makes a run for it. And so when when Odd, Ulrich, and Jeremy get to the factory, they do find her in Lyoko, and they ultimately call Yumi, who gets there quickly, and Jeremy sends all three of them into Lyoko to try and catch up with Aelita. However, as Aelita's running, she finds herself cornered by the blocks until she reaches the edge of the sector she's in, which in this case was the forest sector, when something strange happens. A strange orb appears bearing Xana's insignia / the Lyoko symbol, and then suddenly Jeremy just loses her. Like, he tries to get... Like, he says he can't seem to find her. Like, he's still detecting a signal, but it's not in any of the sectors in Lyoko. And as he starts digging deeper, it turns out that she is somehow wound up in a fifth sector. Something that the computer calls Carthage. And of course, we soon see Aelita as she arrives in Carthage, and it's actually a rather interesting and just kind of very strange place. As it's not like any of the other sectors. It's not like based on real world locations. Like I said, the 4 sectors we've had are a forest sector, a mountain sector, an ice sector, and a desert sector. And while all of them definitely have enough there so that they don't, while all of them are definitely strange in their own way because they're only virtual, they still look familiar enough to us so that we can still identify them as a place that we would know. But Carthage, unfortunately, does not. It looks different. It's actually it's the first sector so far that actually looks like it's kind of in a computer. It's just sort of alien. It has structures it has strange structures that spread out, walls that move, pathways that open up when you approach them. It looks like there's no rhyme or reason to this place. It's just that it's a bunch of things put together, and it seems like it's just kind of moving on its own. But of course, it's still in Lyoko, and as such, when Aelita wakes up in Carthage and goes to investigate, she's hounded by monsters. And like with the tarantula from last episode, we see some new variety of monsters this time. These are the first variety are these creatures called creepers. Essentially, these weird slug things that can shoot lasers out of their mouths, who drag themselves by their front legs, and who have tails instead of back legs. They definitely kind of love to name as they're creepy, and like the blocks before them, they seem to be kind of leading Aelita towards something. They seem to be kind of cornering Aelita into something as they eventually corner her in this large room that's full of blocks. And it's here where we meet another monster. Now, I don't remember this exact monster's name, and they're probably going to reveal it in a later episode, so sorry about that. But essentially, this new variety of monster is like this weird tentacle jellyfish octopus thing. And pretty much when Aelita finds herself cornered, this thing comes out, wraps a couple of the tentacles around her, and then starts doing something to her. Essentially, which Jeremy later confirms, it's draining her memory. Now this doesn't happen right away, like that. But in fact, the kids are actually wondering how can they get to Sector 5, how can they get to this 5th sector, and it turns out that the only way to access it is by utilizing a password, which Jeremy can't find. However, utilizing the book, he's able to find out that the password is Scipio. And so when he again, I can't really relay all that sort of thing. I sucked at history. So but it allows them. But pretty much it calls. But when he enters it, it calls the orb and that takes Odd, Ulrich, and Yumi to Carthage, where when they learn that something's going on with Aelita, they go to investigate. They run in and they manage to destroy the creepers and free Aelita from the monster before it drains her memory. However, there's also another little caveat of Carthage. It turns out that apparently it only lasts so long. This does come up in later episodes, which is why I'm throwing it out right here right now. As once the group is there, Jeremy tells them they have to run. As that we see as once they enter Carthage, there was a timer that popped up that counted down. They had less than a minute. They had less than 2 minutes to be in Carthage, and as the timer wound down, Carthage started to close up. The blocks and the walls started to come together. Pretty much after they grabbed Aelita, the group pretty much bolted out and then took the Scipio orb back to the forest sector, and everyone devirtualized. As such, the episode ends with them meeting in Jeremy's room again, and pretty much they're just wondering what this place is, and they want to explore it, and of course they want to explore, but Jeremy says that first he's got to run some tests on it, but at the same time, Aelita's also apologizing for running off to Lyoko, but the group is understanding that she's kind of dealing about what she's dealing with, and they say that they'll be there more for her, which is sweet. And it's ultimately capped off when Sissy sees Aelita, tries giving her flack, and this time Aelita is able to throw it right back at her, so I like that. So, yeah. Well, what do I think? So, I admit, I think this is also really nice, too. I think, like last week, I think what's nice, I actually really like this episode. I think what helps, again, is that we are seeing more plot developments. There are more tidbits and there are more little snippets there are more snippets that hint towards future plot progression, and it's nice seeing them lay the groundwork for that. This is the episode where we're finally introduced the idea of France Hopper, who does become a more prominent character that the kids look into as the series goes on, and we see the groundwork being laid more and more as they discover he owned the Hermitage, and on top of that, he worked at Kadic. And combine those factors with the fact that Aelita seemed to have visions of the house and the secret passageway that led to the sewer. It leads to an obvious conclusion that he might have something to do with the supercomputer and Lyoko, which ultimately leads the group to wanting to find out more about him. On top of that, we're also seeing more factors being introduced that I think make you invested and want to see what's going on. First off, we got the new monsters, of course, which again, they're definitely nice. The creepers are kind of meant to be your standard enemy, but they definitely love to name as they do kind of look, well, creepy. But the new monster, the tentacle octopus thing whose name eludes me, I'll remember it later, I swear to God. It's actually kind of the best one. Because, spoiling this right now, the new status quo from this episode, from this point on, is that Xana is that every time the kids go to Lyoko, Xana wants to get Aelita alone, as every time she's alone, this monster appears and tries to siphon her memory. And it makes it clear, and this pretty much makes it clear that there's something in Aelita's memory that Xana now wants, which ultimately kind of is interesting because of the hints we've been seeing as the series, we've been seeing in the last couple episodes. With we had her having visions in the Hermitage, involving her and the man, who I'm assuming is France Hopper. Actually, yeah, scratch that. Spoilers, it was France Hopper. But then on top of that, we also have the dream sequence that Aelita's been having. This pretty much the same nightmare for the last week. That's ultimately something that I think is interesting. And the fact that Xana actually herded the group, or in this case Aelita, to Carthage is just kind of strange. It makes you wonder how it's all connected, and you want to see more of it. On top of that, I like Carthage. I honest to God will say this is my favorite sector out of the ones we've seen so far. And yeah, they do revisit Carthage later on. I think there was a time limit on the time they could be in Carthage in the beginning. I think it eventually gets removed. Don't quote me on that, but I think it eventually does get removed. But I love its design because it's so radically different from all the other sectors we've seen so far. Like I've said, all the first 4 sectors all are based on a real-world location. So while they do still look alien and different from what you would expect, it's still familiar enough so that you don't feel out of place. Whereas with Carthage, it definitely kind of feels sterile, cold, and just all around different, and just all around strange. Blue textureless walls. The only way you can get in is through this weird orb, or doors and walls that move on their own. Just everything. The fact that Carthage itself is like a giant orb that seems to be connected to the forest other sectors, as they have these little these little translucent tubes just pulling out from it. So it makes you just want to. It's just kind of strange, and it's strange seeing them kind of go out like that. So I like seeing that. It's interesting, and it's interesting. It's interesting, and it makes you want to explore it more. It actually, because I want to see more of this of Carthage. It really does. It looks so strange, and yet it's something brand new, an unknown factor, an unknown variable. I like that sort of thing. And again, these hints also help towards maybe the origin of Lyoko. Like I said, one of the things that you ultimately don't, that this show kind of hindered the show in the beginning, is that there was no origin episode. We just saw the kids knowing about the supercomputer and Lyoko and Xana and all that stuff. Now, and again, while they do eventually have an episode that explains how they encountered it, how they found the supercomputer, we don't know anything about it, or how it came into being, how it was created, etc. So to actually lay the groundwork for that, and to see them exploring options about its origin, I like that. It's interesting. And another thing that I ultimately liked, Aelita. This episode ultimately showcases something that I think actually has good drama, namely the culture shock with Aelita and just kind of trying to adapt to living in the real world. Because again, keep this in mind, because you have to keep in mind that for most of her life, as far as she can remember, she's lived in Lyoko. And in Lyoko, she was alone. All she had to worry about was just how to pass the time, or exploring. And the only human interaction she had was with the group for a while. Was with the Lyoko kids. So when you start seeing, so it makes sense why she would be more naive, as the only people that she's ever been exposed to are Xana, who's not really a person but more a virus, and these kids who have been nothing but nice to her. And while she probably has heard secondhand information about some of the drama they've been dealing with, it's not drama that she's dealt with herself. So it makes sense why she would be an easy target for Sissy. But it ultimately leads her to feeling more and more out of place, as she feels that she doesn't have anyone she can turn to. And as the kids are kind of more involved in their own thing, they kind of forget her, which also makes sense. They're not being jerks by doing this. It's just their normal routine. They've never had to, before all this, they never had to worry about including Aelita. She existed in Lyoko. If they wanted to contact her, they would just call her via a computer. But now she's an more active part of their lives. She's in the real world. So it makes sense. You can be forgiven. So when she tries to reach out to them, it doesn't work. She doesn't okay, in the case of Yumi, she didn't reach out to her, but neither did Yumi, but then again, Yumi probably didn't see her. But in the case of the boys, they didn't even consider her. Even when they said, early in the episode, they said they meet up with her at lunch, but then when they realized they were skipping out, Jeremy said, "Oh, it's fine, she can handle herself." Again, they don't take into account that she is a fish out of water. She doesn't know anybody. She doesn't know how life works. She needs a guiding hand. So it makes sense why she has a breakdown like she does. It's too much information and it's too much information, and it makes sense why no one is cutting her any slack here. They don't know that she lived in a supercomputer. Of course they're probably going to get. Of course, no one's going to cut her some slack. Not helped by the fact that these are kids, and kids are just naturally jerks. So of course it makes sense why she would eventually have her breakdown, and why she would actually go back to Lyoko, because Lyoko's familiar. It's host to monsters and an evil AI, but like Aelita said in the end of last season, Lyoko was her home. That place is more familiar to her than this strange place full of hormonal kids who will get angry at you if you don't move fast enough at the lunch line, or will trick you into doing something stupid that will embarrass yourself, like go to the boys' shower room. That is, of course, her reactions are human. She's ultimately just scared and afraid and is just trying to fit in, but ultimately doesn't feel like she can, which is why she runs away to Lyoko. Which makes the ending a lot more satisfying, as the group is completely understanding. They're not mad at her. Of course she'd be feeling like this. And they do apologize for not taking her feelings into consideration, and that's sweet. I like that sort of thing. And at the end, it is nice seeing her actually start kind of getting more into the groove, as when Sissy tries insulting her, she just throws it right back at her, which I like. I like that. So it's also a nice episode for character development for Aelita, and it's nice seeing that development as the episode goes on, and it's cute and I like it. So yeah, but on the whole, it's still a good episode. Introduces a lot more plot elements to be expanded on later. We get to see a couple more monsters, including one that has a lot more prominence than the other. Though again, the other ones aren't forgotten. We're introduced to a brand new sector, which I think looks nice and strange. And we also get some great new character development that adapts to the new situation. So yeah, overall, really good episode. Really good episode. Looking forward to next week. So yeah. That's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next time. Take care.